Hello, friends. Golf courses are strewn with what used to be called hazards. Lovely term. That's what they used to call all of the areas of play that are particularly difficult, whether they're naturally occurring, like a river or a stream, or man made, like bunkers. And bunkers are the old term given to these hazards. They're now called uh, penalty areas, which perhaps apocryphally were possibly man made, and quite often are, but were made by animals. Sheep and cattle used to graze the linkland, the grassland that goes around the coast of the British Isles, particularly Scotland, and they would gather in the hollows to get out the wind and rain, stamp and nibble away at the grass and expose the sand underneath. And long after sheep were not used to graze the grass, they had machines, they would maintain the bunkers, often with stacks of turf in the face, very difficult. They're very deep. And they would name these bunkers. The golf course at St Andrews, the most famous one in the world, the old course, it has bunkers with names like the Parson's Nose, the Spectacles, Hell Bunker, which, if I recall correctly, Jack Nicklaus took 10 to get out of one day, or scored 10 on the hole. I think it's a par five. And of course, the most famous one of the lot, which is the road bunker on the 17th, next to the 17th green at St Andrews. So these bunkers are very deep, and you really can't see them very often from the tee. Bunkers in America are visible. They sculpt and shape and position them, so you at least know what you're dealing with. But the ones in Scotland, you could be aiming out on what looks like a perfectly open fairway, and there are bunkers scattered all over that you can't see. And so, very often, because they're so deep, you would find that they have steps to go down into them, and you would have to fire out sideways or backwards just to get back into play. So, these bunkers are uh, so difficult that if you find yourself in one and you just can't get out, remembering that until 2019, the rule of golf, which was pretty awful, said if you go in a bunker, you have to hit it out. There was no provision for you to take relief from a bunker. I remember one poor chap I was teaching who took probably 20 shots to get out of a bunker. Now, admittedly, the last dozen or so were just anger, where he was just thrashing away without control. But it gives you an idea. So I think starting in 2019, when they did a massive revision of the score of the rules of golf, they now provide an additional form of relief, which allows you to take the ball out of the bunker. It's a two-stroke penalty, but you can keep the point where it lay in the bunker between you and the target and go back as far down that line as you can. The other options are that you can uh, take a two club length relief, a semicircle not nearer the hole, and drop it in there, or you can keep the point where the ball lay between you and the hole and go back along that line, but you must stay in the bunker. And or you can go back and take a two-stroke penalty and hit from where you originally hit the shot that went into the bunker. Now, if it happened to be that spot was in the bunker, you have to stay in the bunker. So you can see that it's still no picnic when you go in them. And it is actually easier now than it used to be just because of a wonderful change of equipment. A very famous golfer called Gene Sarazen, his nickname was the Squire, an American golfer, wonderful. He was so frustrated with how inefficient the old Nibliks were to get out of a bunker that he eventually just went to a golf shop, bought six of them, and started to apply solder onto the base of the head and shaped it with a file until he built this large stack of material along the bottom edge and the trailing edge of the base. And it was so successful getting out of the bunker because it just stopped the club from digging in to the point of disaster, but did allow you to hit the sand. And so I think it was Wilson Sporting Goods, with whom he had a commercial agreement, that actually marketed it. And to this day, they're really essentially about the same form that he came up with his file and his solder. Wonderful. So with the change in terms, they're all called what you call penalty areas nowadays. They're not called hazards anymore. And so other hazards are things like lakes and streams and they have specific rules about whether you can or can't ground the club. That means touching the club to the surface. In with regard to the bunkers, people wonder if, because those rules have changed, you can actually go in the bunker, take a couple of practice swings, hit the sand, and then take the shot that actually counts. The answer is no. You can't touch the sand other than by accident if you sort of stumble or use the club to rebalance yourself. But you can't touch the sand either in front of or behind the ball in preparation for the shot, or as you draw the club back. You can only touch the sand as you make a play for the ball. So that's a hazard.